Personally, I don't subscribe to the idea of personality disorders for various reasons. I find them to be a pathologizing framework. I find them to be based on questionable research evidence. They're often really weaponized against minoritized folks. They've been used against sexual and gender minorities, for example, disabled folks, neurodivergent folks, who often end up misdiagnosed with a personality disorder. Now, that doesn't mean that for some clients to be diagnosed with a personality disorder is not meaningful. It might be incredibly meaningful for somebody to find a framework that explains what they have been experiencing. It also doesn't mean that there isn't a configuration of cognitive patterns, so the way we think, behavioral patterns, the way we act, and relational patterns, the way we are with one another as well as in relation with ourselves, that fall under those umbrella. Those patterns exist, but they don't need to be labeled the way they're labeled. For example, the way we label them very much depends on the theoretical lens that we are applying. That's what I meant by the theoretical lens we use really determines the way we conceptualize ourselves and each other as human and the way we think about mental health. So having awareness of those theoretical foundations becomes really important. Otherwise, we perpetuate ideas that something is so common that applies across all therapists, right? So for example, I've been told that my license should be taken away because I don't support the idea of personality disorders, and that I shouldn't practice according to my opinions. In this historical moment, it's also very interesting that some people are coming at me with that idea, given how much science has been questioned. But I have to say, this is not an uninformed opinion. This is an opinion that's backed up by theoretical support and research data. Here are some peer-reviewed sources, for example, that I've cited. None of them were from me, by the way. So there's no circular citation when I'm making this argument. This is an argument that's been made by many people before me, and I'm sure it'll be made by people after me until we find a better way of using the idea of diagnosis, for example. And I put that in air quotes because, again, even the diagnostic framework comes from a very specific theoretical understanding, right? And so that's why I think it's important to talk about this, because otherwise the general public, clients, and sometimes therapists themselves don't really know that those things can be approached critically. That just because something exists, we don't have to work in that specific paradigm.